Am I audible now? Yeah, okay. So as I said, I mean, I'll be presenting something which are very preliminary, and I'm presenting that because I expect to hear back from the experts, okay? So let me start with this overview. I'll be showing just one diagram what happens when we add the mass axis to the standard QCD phase diagram. Then mainly I will talk about what we have been carrying some work which is called energy like observables, and I will tell you what are these, and then I will summarize. Okay, so for the massless QCD, we definitely will have a phase transition at any point in the chiral plane. Okay, so now if I look at this plot, the physical mass phase diagram in this three-dimensional plane is just a slight cut at the physical mass value, and that is this standard crossover lines starting from the temperature axis, which and the first order line emerging from the chemical potential axis, and it ends at the critical point. But this phase diagram, if you add the mass axis to this diagram, which is shown here, then this is just a slice, as I said, and this is a part of the global phase diagram which has been shown here. Okay, in the chiral limit, as I said, one has to have, because the symmetry is exact, so one has to have changed the phase to a phase transition. There is no other way, and it has been argued that at 0 mu, this will be going through a second order phase transition. The zero temperature phase transition remains first order, and there must be a tricritical point, which Ove also talked about. Okay, and now this is being tricritical because this three-phase coexistent ends here, which below this line there are two broken phases. One is positive magnetization, one is negative magnetization, and the above of this curve is the restored phase. Okay, so there is another work which says that these so-called Z2 wing lines actually depart from this tricritical point, and our so-called conjectured critical endpoint at the physical world is just a point on that line. Okay, so given this global picture of the QCD phase diagram, the crucial input here is this anomalous UA1, whether it restores at TC or not, and that's as we introduced, that has been a discussion for many decades. So I would like to start with that actually, because let's see if I can complement the previous discussions in some way. Okay, so here I have borrowed a diagram which actually relates various mesonic channels, and the horizontal line, horizontal end related by the chiral symmetry, and they are vertically connected to the UA1. Now we know that we can establish the UA1 restoration by looking at the degeneracy of the mass or the susceptibility, in general the correlation function in these channels. Okay, now if you are wondering why the left I have highlighted, not the right, it's just computational easy, because the right hand side is an isoscalar channel, so that needs a contribution of the disconnected diagrams which are noisy, and we can do with the connected part only in the left. Okay, so but the point is, if chiral symmetry is restored, then in principle the upper two pi and sigma can change their interchange, right, their places. So in principle, in a chiral symmetric phase, I can relate through UA1. So basically I can relate the diagonals actually, because then delta and sigma can be related, and that can be shown that the difference between two, as you can see, is just the chi disk, which is the disconnected part of the so-called scalar or chiral susceptibility. Okay, it's a susceptibility in the scalar channel. So so this issue has not been resolved undoubtedly yet, and rather here I try to list some of the works which I showed earlier also, I mean in some meetings, that some works find that UA1 is broken, and some find UA1 is restored. So the contradiction is going on. But I would like to make a point here that all this among all these works, mostly the studies have been done above TPC, or let's say the TPC, by TPC I mean pseudocritical temperature. Okay, but what we need actually to understand the restoration of the UA1 or the breaking of the UA1 at chiral critical point, okay, and which is hard. So that's what I am going to show a slide about it, what are we trying to do in this direction, okay. And as I said, disconnected susceptibility can be treated as the quote unquote order parameter for the UA1 restoration in a chirally symmetric background, okay. And here I'm showing calculation from the HISC action. You can see the disconnected susceptibility represented by various colors for various masses and as a function of temperature. Now, we are mainly interested in the higher temperature. So let's come from the temperature from a higher side. So I'll be talking about vertical cuts sections of this, so which has been represented in the lower panel. Now you can see if I am at a high enough temperature, then it's monotonically decreases chi-disk, okay, and which is seen in this, for example, blue curve here, if you can see my cursor. And similarly, also for it's towards the chiral limit, it's also monotonic here, but that is not going to be true when we are approaching. Okay, sorry. When we are approaching the so-called temperatures close to the chiral critical temperature, because then if you look, for example, around this temperature, which is 155 or so, you can see that or maybe here a little above 157 or so. So it first increases, but then it starts decreasing, which is seen as a variation of mass, which is a completely non-monotonic variation, and that makes it harder to really conclude anything when we have temperatures closer to the chiral critical temperature, okay. Because I really want to point it out that the higher temperature, like 200 MeV, if you do that, you can do a straight extrapolation to this, which is not possible when you go towards the chiral critical temperature, okay. Now, similar studies, it's not only chi-disk, the similar studies has also been made from the mesonic channel correlators by calculating the susceptibilities to the mesonic correlators, which have been showing the same plots. You can see the chi pi minus chi a naught is sum as delta with my previous plot here. It's this delta is a naught basically. So these are this is the plot, and you can see that at low temperature this divergence is expected anyway, because the first term by a closed dial it's chi pi, so it's by the word identity it diverges according to 1 over mass, okay. And now if we do the same at various temperatures as I showed for the chi-disk, we essentially see the same thing, that we don't have enough data here, but it will come down at some point, and at some point it will don't come back. So that's the point, that so after turning it towards the smaller value, does it go to 0 or it stays non-zero in the chiral limit? That is the main question we are asking here, and we are trying to improve upon this plot, but this is the current status now, okay. And as I have shown here, the T by Tc is, as you can see, close to 1, okay. And that's what for this part I would mainly like to point out, and then I go to the next part, which is my energy-like direction, okay. So let me start with something which is commonly associated with the deconfinement transition of QCD, something like Polyakov loop. We all know that Polyakov loop can be treated as the order parameter in the Quate's limit, given the fact this is you can relate to it to the free energy of a test charge in a confined versus deconfined medium. You find it infinite versus finite, which makes it L0 in one case and finite in the other, okay. So that's the standard use of the Polyakov loop. But the point is, what is the role of the Polyakov loop in with respect to the chiral transition? Now the point is, you might first ask, why should it have any? Because in principle in QCD, I don't derive Polyakov loop from any derivative of the QCD partition function, right? So any singularity of the QCD partition function, I don't know how it is related to the Polyakov loop, okay? But the point is, if it is a second order phase transition, and we can think about the phase transition in an effective theory approach, and in this effective theory there will be operators which are which respect the symmetry, which we call the energy like operator, the symmetry under the consideration, and there are operators which will break that symmetry, that is the magnetization direction. So in that case, if we write some effective theory with for the chiral phase transition, then for example this Polyakov loop or the related to the heavy quark free energy, they are will appear is the energy like operator, that's the claim is. And so in that sense, we should write the free and heavy quark free energy F over temperature is in the scaling perspective, that is related to the scaling function ff prime, given the fact, please remind from, I would like to remind you from Shripad's slide that ff is the scaling function related to the free energy. So I take a derivative of the free energy with respect to some fictitious coupling and I get it, and I get a Polyakov loop or heavy quark free energy, okay? Now the point is this, as you can see from the exponent of the mass, which is H is the symmetry breaking field in QCD, that is light quark mass scaled by some whatever you want, we scale it with respect to strange quark mass. And this exponent actually 1 minus alpha over beta delta, this is a positive number, which immediately tells you that in the chiral limit, this contribution vanishes. So what remains? What remains is the regular part, so to speak. Okay. So then that's why we think that to prove it, it's not a good way to take this free energy itself. Rather, take a derivative of with respect to H, which will be related to this Fg prime in scaling, and then the power of the quark mass will be negative, and that quantity will diverge. And what is this in QCD actually? If I take a H derivative with of heavy quark free energy, it's nothing but a correlation function. The two operators are the Polyakov loop and the chiral condensate. So it's a correlation between chiral condensate and Polyakov loop. It's not, I hope it's not hard to understand. Okay. So that quantity, when we plot and try to do a scaling fit to it, it show the correct rescaling is the right hand plot, and I'm showing the plot at various masses and the chiral estimate. Okay. Now in the right hand side, I'm showing this the behavior of what is expected from the scaling, the mass dependence above TC, at TC and below TC. Now I just would like to focus on the fact that this below TC thing, as you can see, the mass dependence is linear, is kind of it's nice. It's nice given the fact that in a formalism, in a effective theory where which is heavy quark free energy, also you can in some other theory, as I have given references, they also found that this heavy quark free energy has a linear mass dependence, and this linearity is quite in general. I think this is due to this Goldstone effect, and that can be well understood by the next term, which I have not written here, which will be h to the 3/2, and that term is negative. You can calculate it. All I'm telling you is not a story. You can calculate it yourself. Okay. So this negative, when I take a mass derivative of this term, you can immediately understand the thing which we are with is this constant, and then a term which is h to the 1/2, and that term is negative, and that's why this h derivative goes to the chiral limit from below, because the correction is negative. Okay, and after doing this, we tried to fit the regular part, remaining regular part, fixing the singular part from this derivative. We tried to fit the regular part from the free energy itself, and then effectively everything is described. Okay. Now this given the fact that this FQ over T is an energy like observable what is the temperature derivative of it? Okay, an energy like observable, if I take another temperature derivative, then it should be like a specific heat, and that's what I'm showing from the fit. This black line is the QCD line, and this dotted brown line is the spin model, O2 spin model line is just rescaled to have a better visibility. And you can see that this characteristic cast at the chiral limit, which we always expect for CV to happen, that happens for QCD in a quark mass regime, which is 2 order of magnitude lower compared to what we access now, because this is redrawing the fit results, and you can see the peaks appear at the magenta curve, which I took typically a number 10 to the minus 5 H value. Okay, so but I will come to this more, and actually this it's identifying this peak is really hard. It is not only like CV like quantities, it also in CV. For physical mass, it has been shown as already been kind of argued in this reference what I'm in the last presenting, and it has been specifically seen that specific heat itself, if you calculate, you can identify a completely kind of rising background due to the energy term, which is scaled energy epsilon over T to the 4, and then there is a term which actually has a peak. But if when you really add this to get really the dimensionless CV, which is CV over T cube, to make it properly dimensionless, you see a rise only. There is no peak. That peak is somehow hidden. Okay, but you can find it out. That's what, at least for physical mass, people have shown it, hot QCD. And then I asked that after all these gluonic observables I have discussed, what happens to the chemical potentials? Okay, now the chemical potentials it's a flavor chemical potentials which appear in the QCD Lagrangian, and they don't break chiral symmetry explicitly. So it's not hard to argue that well, they will not be like quark mass like, okay, because quark mass explicitly breaks the symmetry. So as I have written here, this small t, which is the reduced temperature, the chemical potential will contribute here. The square comes from the CP symmetry. Okay, that has to be CP symmetric. That's why the square. And so if I write in this way, then there could be terms like mu L square, which is the light, which I have abbreviated for U and D, degenerate U and D, and there could be strange flavor chemical potential, and there could be a cross term. Okay, and but what about the conserved charges? Now the conserved charges, actually, let me start with a mu B, which is definitely doesn't break the chiral symmetry. So then for mu B, I'll come back to it again. Okay, for mu B, as I have written again, I could write it as a mu B square. Okay, then near the chiral transition temperature, you can see from this relation, a single temperature derivative could be equivalent to a 2 chemical potential derivative. Okay, I'm sorry, and if this happens, then again chi2b, which is a second order baryon chemical potential, is expected to behave like an energy like observable, and again that should be related to this exponent, which will be vanishing in the chiral limit, and the scale and the scaling function ff prime. And that's what we checked here explicitly, that we calculate baryon susceptibility for various masses. We calculate it exactly from at TC, which we know from other analyses. Then I check whether at TC this fits to this scaling form or not, because at TC z equals to 0, so this number is a constant ff prime, and we are left with some constant into this behavior. And I checked that the linear fit works pretty well. And not only that, I mean, as I'm telling you that in the chiral limit, this is solely regular terms. So the intercept minus the value at any finite mass gives you the singular contribution, actually, because in chiral limits it's only regular. In the in finite mass is singular plus regular, so the different must give you the singular term. And from the singular term, for the ratio of the singular terms, as you can see here, if the H term drops, those singular terms will be proportional to the ratio of the curvatures on the corresponding or on the corresponding phase plane. Okay, and then if I go on a little more on the in this direction, so how do I find this curvature coefficient? So here I'm showing like curvature of the pseudo is in bracket because we can talk about critical lines as well as the pseudo critical lines at finite masses. So I have tried 3 bullets here. So the first one is we can do a direct scaling fit of such a quantity which we call mixed susceptibility, which is the mu b derivative to mu b derivative of chiral condensate. And from scaling perspective, that will be related to this fg prime, which is a scaling function with this diverging amplitude, okay, in the chiral limit. Now, this, if I fit with various masses, then I get to get this kappa of that corresponding, so kappa b in this case, on the chiral limit directly. But we can do some other things also, because we can again exploit this equality to one temperature derivative is equivalent to the 2 chemical potential derivative, and we can try to calculate this ratio instead, okay, where we can show that again the fg prime and these things drops, and the ratio basically gives you another kappa, but this kappa is not directly the kappa of the chiral limit, but this gives you the estimator at finite masses of this chiral limit kappa, and you can see the consistency. Then you calculate it mass by mass and you have a number for chiral limit. Let's see whether this converges or not. And the other thing, third, we can get something more. What is that? I'm now talking about the chiral plane, but if we leave the chiral plane and talk about the pseudo-critical lines, how do I find that? The third way is you define a physical condition, let's say any pressure or energy which you see at a value of its zero chemical potential value. You demand that over the T mu plane, I'm going to scan the T mu a line where this physical condition is getting continued over T mu B plane. And from that condition, for example, the inflection point of the Scheibe-Schei or the chiral condensate, which is defined by the ddt of this quantity being 0, if you expand in a Taylor expansion way and claim that is the condition everywhere on the T mu plane, then you get the chiral the pseudo-critical line curvature through these expressions. So we are working on all of this, and some results are already can be found in this reference. In the right hand plot, I'm showing a result which with respect to the second bullet, what I was talking about, that you can calculate the estimators of the chiral critical curvature, and you can see for various masses the estimator actually overlap. We are trying to improve this MS/80 data, and the black band here, what you can see, the black band is a calculation of the third bullet done at the physical mass, okay? So but also at the continuum limit, so that's why it has an extra large error bar. And the point we are trying to make here, the things can be done in a consistent way through these three points I have listed here. So there are discussions about other chemical potentials. I'm running out of time. An interesting discussion could be what is related to the charge, electric charge or isospin chemical potential, okay? Now for electric charge, it has been argued for the critical endpoint in the finite mu that any criticality which is appearing in the chi B should appear also in the chi Q, given this given there is nothing in the isospin channel, and that's because you can confirm it in the way that the isospin number doesn't mix with the critical mode, which is a scalar channel, even at finite mu, okay? And but what about with respect to chiral criticality, okay? Then thanks to one of my collaborator who made this lower panel plot this morning actually, and so we can see the isospin somehow with respect to the chiral phase transition does also the same thing, okay? And which is I think pretty new, and we have to think about it, how isospin is giving the same contribution as the baryon with respect to the chiral transition, given the fact that for chi4 in the electric charge channel, if I look at the fourth order electric charge fluctuation, which is expected to be a specific hit light quantity, that indeed develops a cusp, which I was showing in the Polyakov loop. This cusp, this is the same cusp it's expected to develop, that is already developing, okay? But this isospin thing we have to understand better, and then I will finish just by this thing. Actually, what about the strange mass then? strange quark mass. Now, given the strange quark mass doesn't break the chiral symmetry in the two light flavors, strange quark mass is expected to be an energy like of the parameter in two flavor chiral limit. Okay, this is important because then I can write the here I have dropped the mu's chemical potential, so I can write the TC as a function of ms actually. And now I'm talking about I would like to remind you the Columbia plot. I'm talking about the left hand side of the Columbia plot, what Ove actually focused many times. Okay, so ms is being changing along that line. So basically, if I'm moving from this 2+1 flavor chiral limit towards the higher value or towards the lower value, I am moving towards 2 flavor or 3 flavor chiral limit. Okay, and then the TC of course changes. That's what we have been discussing here. And how that changes, that can be answered by the question that if I calculate the curvature in this temperature versus strange quark mass plane, and that's what we have been trying here. Okay, so in the same way, since we are expanding around ms physical value, so this is the kind of nature, and we expect the strange quark condensate to be also energy like observable, and that makes a non-trivial difference in the magnetic equation of state analysis, given the subtraction by the strange condensate cannot be taken as a purely order parameter function then. Okay, it's a mix between order parameter and the energy like quantity. So this is the first result I'm showing here to a very preliminary result of this quantity. You can just see if I put the condition t equal to 0, then this equation give me the ms variation with respect to the I'm sorry, I'm just the ms variation of the TC. And this by calculating this ratio shown here, this is again the finite mass estimators of the TMS plane curvature. And if I take a very crude value in the chiral limit like 0.2, then given the fact that at fixed lattice spacing in tau 8, I have the chiral transition temperature 144, it gives me a naive estimate already 115. Okay, and Shipas just showed that it is actually 100. But we have to keep in mind that is very naive given it is only one order in the mass variation. Okay, so that's what I think is the thing, and I don't think I don't have to read the conclusion. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Anivar, for this very nice talk. Questions?
So when you have good answers on U1A at TC, have you thought about how you can quantify this in terms of, so in terms of these model calculations that people did, right? The question is how big is the non-restoration? So you're seeing
how big is the
breaking? So you
yeah.
So you're seeing a remnant, right, of the anomaly, but for this whole discussion, how big, how important is the anomaly? One needs a quantitative thing, and this answer is given, as far as I know, only in these models where you have like the 't Hooft determinant and the coupling, and it's not clear how to map these. Right? Have you thought about that, or?
No, I mean, of course, that's a trilinear coupling you are talking about, which amounts to like 6 quark interaction in this 3 flavor theory. That's really the model perspective. I'm not sure how to map it actually. Because such couplings, I mean, I can't really connect it to the QCD numbers, right? I mean, this is hard. I mean, I have to think about it. I don't have a ready answer. Sorry.
Questions? Fritjof.
Yeah, maybe I just can make a comment to Owe's question, which is of course very relevant in the long run, but on the current level of the discussion, you may actually wonder why people can anyhow say that UA1 is effectively restored. So I think the present point is really showing definitely that there is a non-zero value at TC that leads to UA1 breaking. Then later on you can think about what does it do in effective models. The more confusing thing is that there are many calculations on the market which say UA1 is effectively restored at TC.
Okay, thanks, Fritjof, for the comment. Any other question? Okay, if not, let's thank everyone again for the very nice talk. And